Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolf, no Gavin today, but I have a fantastic guest. You guys might know him. He's been here before. Prez, who you might know as @_Presidente on Twitter of the Strickland, who's been writing some amazing draft content this whole cycle and hosts the Draft Strickland podcast in addition to Pod Strickland on Fridays. Busy man for the Strickland. And he is coming on today for the first of a two-part podcast to talk about smokescreens. Sounds spooky, right? But it's what happens around the draft. There's always all this reporting out there. Teams put things out to try to, make you think that they want one thing and then do another. So we're going to talk about them in general and then talk about if the Jaden Ivey trade up situation is a smokescreen or if we think it's legit and the Knicks are actually interested in moving up to number 4 to take Jaden Ivey. So we'll get into that next on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. I want to remind you guys today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. And I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or if you're checking us out on YouTube. I appreciate you guys making us a part of your daily routine. As I said in the intro, I'm joined by Prez in this episode. And like I said, we're getting into this great talk about smoke screens around the draft, what to believe, what not to believe, what teams' motivations are for putting certain things out there. So I won't hold this up any further. Let's get right into this great episode. All right, as promised, I am joined by Prez of the Strickland. You might know him as @_Presidente on Twitter, and he has put out a ton of draft coverage this cycle. So very happy to get him back on the show right before the draft here to get some last minute insights, have some last minute discussions before the draft cycle ends. And regrettably, Prez goes mostly back into hiding for a little while and, and then comes back firing on all cylinders once it hits draft cycle season again. Prez, how you doing, man? Are you feeling the load coming off as the end of draft season comes up here?
Yeah, I was getting happy hour with a buddy of mine today, and he was like, "So, what are you doing for the draft?" And I was like, "Because he knows this is what I write about," and I'm like, "I guess we'll do a live stream, even though I don't have cable, so I'm always behind, and Woj and Shams are gonna leak it anyway." Part of me just wants to as soon as the last piece of content I put out is done, to just go off the grid and then just catch up on all the draft stuff a day later rather than real time, because it's kind of stressful for me. So I don't know how I'm doing.
It's a good answer. I think anybody who's in the content space can relate to needing a moment to just let it go for a couple minutes at the end of a long cycle of stuff. But we're not there yet, Prez. So I'm gonna keep riding you like secretariat here. You came to me with an idea for sort of the beginning of the show, and so I'm going to throw it to you loosely about smoke screens this time of year as it pertains to potential trades, potential draft positions, stuff like that. So I'm going to throw it to you to introduce this concept here.
Yeah. So basically, it's a fascinating part of the draft cycle, the very end, right before, because you get a mix of you begin getting real leaks, some intentional, some unintentional, from teams and front offices about where they're thinking and who they might pick. But you're also getting the smoke screens released just to misdirect the public and other teams and stuff like that. And I'll give you an example. So everybody's saying, Jabari Smith is the consensus number one guy that the Magic are going to take, and he's going to be the first pick. And then we just heard that Chet Holmgren met with the Magic leadership and stuff yesterday. So part of me is like, okay, is this just them doing due diligence, or was all of the Jabari stuff just them trying to make people think they won't take Chet and Paolo, so that at the end in the last couple of days when they say, actually, we met with Chet and he blew us away. What a great guy and an amazing kid. Now, if you want to, get Chet, you have to trade with us, OKC or whatever. So like that's an example of the smokescreen. And if you think about it, the players that Magic have picked through the years, they're usually like Chet, not like Jabari, right? Like long guys, not super duper offensively gifted, probably like okay shooters, right? You think Bamba, Wendell, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony. Well, Cole Anthony doesn't really fit, but like
Isaac.
Isaac, right? Like Chuma. These are long boys and they're toolsy and they play D and shit like that. So, or stuff like that. Um, so I don't know. I don't know what's real, what's not. We get some leaks, and then I'll give y'all another example. So, um, on Chris Parsianen's Knicks draft class, which people should check out if you haven't. He had the wonderful friend of Locked On Knicks, not really friend of Pod Strickland, Mark Berman, who had a great interview, and they were talking about the Obi draft, and it's impossible to know whether Berman is just trolling for fun or being real, but he kind of implied that like when Obi fell to the Knicks at 8, part of that may have been nudged along by CAA. And if you guys remember what happened in that cycle, Obi was very highly regarded. He was the player of the year. He was not going to be like the number one pick or anything, but he was basically in the convo for top 5. And then about 10 days out, we began hearing that Patrick Williams was rising. And, at first we heard Cleveland loves Obi. And then all of a sudden we heard Cleveland loves Okoro. All of a sudden he started rising. And then Detroit might take Killian Hayes all of a sudden. So like all the teams right between Cleveland and the Knicks all of a sudden love these other dudes instead of Obi. So I don't know how much was real, how much was them actually changing their minds, or who was pulling the string. So I'm not going to pretend to know what's what. I'm just out here to like, this is definitely tinfoil hat season for me. So I'm ready to just recklessly throw out rumors without evidence here on this pod because, you know, this is Locked On Knicks. I'm not going to let lack of evidence stop me from speculating here.
Yeah, we are the most reputable source of broken news in the Knicksdom, especially in the podcast space. So, this would be the time and place for it. But I hear what you're saying. Like, I could definitely see. I feel like we see this pretty often with the draft pick stuff, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes guys get telegraphed a while in advance, but more often than not, I feel like there's some form of mystery about even the first pick up until the draft, unless it's like a surefire number one guy sort of draft, like with Zion. Like everybody knew Zion was going number one. Like, the Pelicans practically like printed the jersey on lottery
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.
So that was going to happen. Like you knew that was going to happen. But then there's other drafts, which is most of them, where there's a consensus few guys, and that there could be a surprise in there somewhere, and you're not quite sure who's going to go where until draft night. And so it definitely is advantageous for a team like Orlando to say, weeks ago, like Jabari Smith is the dude. Like we're definitely taking him. You get out of the combine, you say, that's it, we're taking Jabari Smith. And then you get these teams like Houston and OKC start planning for a life of, okay, well, Jabari's going to be gone, but now we love Chet. Like if you're OKC, say like, oh man, like we're so excited to get him. We're going to put him with SGA and with Giddey and Dort and all these guys, and have like a really fun team, and he's going to grow into hopefully a really good long rim protector for us that can shoot and like totally fits what we want to do. And then all of a sudden it hits draft night and Orlando says, swerve, we're taking Chet instead. Like, do with it what you will. We wanted him all along. But we're not opposed to taking Jabari Smith if you want to trade with us. And so that's obviously really advantageous. This draft in particular, I feel like it's so tricky to even try that though, because at least outside of the top 3, because outside of that range, other than maybe like Ivy, who seems pretty comfortably sitting at 4, although who knows, maybe some team could surprise us and take him in the top 3 as well and let one of the consensus top 3 hit pick 4, which Sacramento would probably love, both from a trade perspective and a, being able to draft them perspective. But outside of those guys, and then like Ivy, 5 through, I mean, we've said 10 billion times, on this show, with you on, with other people on, with anybody that we talk to, it's all basically personal preference, like 5 through like 20 in this draft of who you like better. And yes, there are some guys that, rise to the top a little more, than some of the others. Obviously, whoever gets picked at 20 probably is not going to be as high of caliber as who gets picked at 5. But, there's going to be a lot of fluidity of like 3-4 pick ranges where you could see guys going in this draft. I feel like all the way from that 5th pick up until like the 20th pick or so. So that strategy in particular, I think, is riskier this year in that range, because you might smoke screen a guy for a really long time and then take someone, and then other teams might just say, well, we don't care. And then because they'll just be like, well, we'll just take the next guy on our board who we think is roughly as good. I wonder if maybe that's why things have been fairly, I feel like there has not been, like you mentioned, that Obi report, and that it started getting telegraphed maybe like a week before that, oh, he's definitely not getting by the Knicks and this, that, the other. And like the reporting on the other teams that are interested in him started to cool. I wonder a bit if there's something going on this year where we're now, at the time that we're recording this, like 4 days or 5 days, or not, like 4 full days away from the draft happening. And outside of that top 3 range, we haven't really heard much in the way of guys that teams are targeting. All we've been hearing is workouts and stuff like that, but there hasn't really been any concrete like team X likes player Y stuff coming out outside of the top 4. And I wonder if that's because teams are starting to sort of understand that it's going to be a weird game to play this year, as far as, trying to establish these smoke screens and whatever. And that's why, or also that everybody's trying to hold everything close to the vest so that then nobody does go up and just like snatch that guy that they want. All right, I'll be right back in with Prez, including eventually getting into our discussion about whether the Jaden Ivey rumor to the Knicks is legit, a smokescreen, what we think is going on there. There's a lot to unpack with that whole rumor, but I have to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by betonline.net. Betonline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. Let's go Mets. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And betonline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. And, the NBA champion was just decided, but there's already odds up for the 2023 NBA champion that you could place a futures bet on. And for example, we've got the Golden State Warriors at 9-2 to repeat, the Celtics at 13-2 to come in and win the title next year. Really surprising one. The Clippers at 15-2. I don't know if I buy that just yet, because maybe they get healthy or whatever, but the team's never been a certainty so far in its current iteration. So why go for that? I kind of like the Suns at 9-1. That just feels like a good bet to me. I mean, they were so good this year. Things obviously didn't work out in the playoffs, but I think that's a team worth betting on potentially. Gavin highlighted them the other day, the Nuggets at 18-1. I would totally go for that as well. I think that's a really good bet for a team that would be getting healthy and has shown that they can do some stuff before. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts.
Yeah, I think that might be the case. I expect a lot of trades too, so there's probably a lot of trade talks behind the scenes. So, if I'm a front office, it's definitely helpful to smoke screen and stuff, but it's also helpful to like honestly, earnestly engage different teams in talks and stuff like that. So if you don't know who you might have to make a deal with, you'll probably keep an open mind and keep it more simple. It's been weird because, yeah, like you said, in this last week, there hasn't been much around the combine. There was a lot more action. Like that's when we saw everybody talking about Dyson Daniels as, even as high as number 5. And I'm looking right now at NBA.com. They have like a consensus mock draft where they look at 12 different mocks. Dyson's 7 right now. in their consensus. So like he definitely got his bump. I don't know. I don't think it was one team specific, like you were saying, like, oh, this team loves him so much or whatever, so much as he's probably just impressed several teams in his workouts. Um, we've heard there's been movement on a couple of guys that hasn't been quite team specific though, and that's kind of interesting to me as well. So like Shaden Sharp, for example, the reports are that he was having poor workouts with these teams, both solo workouts, and he did participate in some group workouts, like 3-on-3 workouts with other lottery guys. And apparently he hasn't been that impressive. And he only worked out for 3 teams. I think it was I want to say one of the top 3 teams, and then I think I forget who he worked out for, but he didn't work out for
Portland,
the Pelicans.
yeah, he was in a video in a Portland workout, I
He
think, too.
Yeah, he did a Portland workout. I'm pretty sure he did a Kings interview. I don't know if he did a Kings workout, but some Pelican fans were like, "Oh, what the hell? Why is he not working out for us or whatever, whatever." And that's one of those. It's one of those weird situations because his stock is so high by not playing, and if he was slipping because of workouts, if he truly was slipping, then like that could be a possibility where he's like, "Oh, we're having bad workouts." His agent said, "Look, we're just gonna pull the plug and keep the mystery mysterious and see what happens." Or it could be that a team like the Pacers or Pistons or OKC, who said, like, say OKC says, "Hey, we're gonna get the number 7 pick from Portland for Lou Dort and our 12th pick, which was a rumor, and we're gonna take you because we can take 18-year-olds who want to chuck and tank our way to glory or whatever." So it's hard to tell why stuff happens. AJ Griffin he's currently in the NBA.com consensus mock going 11 to the Knicks. That's the most common um, position has in these mocks, and he's been falling. Nobody has said explicitly it's because of the medicals, but I can't really imagine it's anything else. And it's not to say like this is a Michael Porter Jr. like busted back, super screwed situation. It could just be teams are like, well, maybe he's fine, but there's other guys we like, so he's not so amazing that we're gonna pick him over Shaden Sharp or Dyson Daniels or something like that. So you have falls like that aren't really tied to a particular team, and I feel like there's been a lot of movement like that, and I don't really know what to make of it. And AJ is a perfect example. Like, what did he go on our Strickland group mock or not mock? Big board. I think he was 5 or 6.
He is. He's number 5 on the Strickland big board. Yep.
Yeah, and that's pretty much where he's been for me for a while now. He's a stud, but I can't help but wonder, like, if the medicals are shaky, the Knicks they're kind of in that inflection spot in the draft where it's like it could be a little dicey, but you could also justify being like, we wouldn't never get to pick AJ Griffin if his medicals were fine. Perfect. So we trust our staff, right? RJ Barrett and Julius never get hurt, right? We know what we're doing. We're long past the days of Roger Hines or whatever his name was,
Mm-hmm.
putting just big ass bandages on Jason Kidd's head mid game. So I don't know. Yeah, it's almost one of those like it's quiet, too quiet kind of
Mm-hmm.
situations, and even though there's movement, I don't really know what to make of it for the Knicks.
Yeah, it is intriguing, and the other aspect to this whole thing is trade rumors, and
Mm-hmm.
so just like there's been all these rumors of certain players potentially falling to the Knicks now, which, like, in addition to AJ Griffin, you want to talk about another guy that's high on the Strickland board, like Johnny Davis is at number 6, and a lot of people still view him like that, as a potential top 10 guy, and he's often mocked going past the Knicks at certain points now. So there's a lot of that going on. But we'll talk about the Strickland big board in a sec. But, like, as far as the trades go and those discussions right now, there's been some reporting out there that the Knicks are trying to get involved in a Jaden Ivey trade. And, that's coming from a lot of pretty pretty reputable guys. Like that's, I've seen that from, I know for sure Ian Begley said something to the effect of, they're trying to move up for Ivy, and if that doesn't work out, they have some guys in mind or potential trade down alternatives, stuff like that. Blah blah blah. It seems like there's a pretty decent amount of smoke there, to the point where I almost feel like I'm comfortable saying at this point that it's not just the Knicks getting thrown into every rumor, because people know that it'll, for whatever reason, I don't know if this still is the case in the league, but like I for the longest time, I think that you were able to just kind of throw the Knicks into every rumor, because then you would make people worry that you were going to do something stupid. Um, or that some other team, i.e. the Knicks, was going to go stupid and outbid you. So you have to give a little extra more because the Knicks are involved here. But that only worked for so long when the Knicks were, in talks with quote unquote like every single available player, every single available, team with players that they were trying to trade, whatever. I think that people have kind of caught on, especially under the Leon Rose front office, that maybe that isn't the case. But I don't know, where are you at on the Ivy trade? Like, what do you think about all the smoke going on out there about the Knicks potentially looking to make that deal to move up?
I think it's legit. It just makes sense, right? I know a lot of Knicks fans want to protect our hearts by assuming, like, it's funny. A lot of Knicks fans, at least online, they want the Knicks to go for a big swing, but it's also a whole lot of sentiment along the lines of, I'll believe it when I see it, because this front office has aired on like the more cautious Brock Aller like value proposition kind of deals, rather than the like make it rain, ante up, put your chips in the middle, and play your fucking big hand because you're ready to consolidate in some way, right? It's like, oh, trade back, acquire an extra first, and then flip that first for, rehabilitating Cam Reddish, and then get Deuce at this pick, who's a great value for a second rounder, and Rokas is a great stash, and like little wins, not huge wins. So I could see why some Knicks fans are like, like I hope they do it, but they're not about that life. I'll believe it when I see it. But in terms of need, it's just he's just an obvious fit for what the Knicks want. They don't have rim pressure aside from RJ, and even RJ is more rim pressure by willpower rather than, explosiveness. So Jaden Ivey obviously is a special athlete who provides that in spades. And, we've heard, like you said, multiple people report it, and they are saying that there's like a couple of sides to it, right? We've heard that it's the Knicks, the Pistons, and the Pacers who are interested primarily. Might be other teams because Jaden Ivey's really good, but those are the ones I've heard named. We've heard that the Kings are game because they want to compete, right? They made their trade for Sabonis. They have Davian starting, and he was killing at the end of the year alongside Fox and all that before they flipped the switch to tank mode. So the most fascinating part about this rumor really is, if you look at the teams that are trying to move up, the Pistons, the Pacers, and the Knicks, and you kind of take Julius Randle out of the picture, none of these teams really have anybody who is really helping the Kings, except for maybe Jeremy Grant. But I don't know if, I would imagine they might want actually more for Jeremy Grant than this pick. Just given they already got a lot of young guys and stuff like that. So maybe they probably want a combination of picks and players. I don't know, but like, and you could just get a really good player at 5 where the Pistons pick. So to me, Duarte or Obi Toppin, we love Obi Toppin, but I don't know if the league is really like ready as we are to just pencil him in for like 25 and 7, which he's going to average next year once we trade Julius. And so it's like, all right, if none of these teams have the impact guys, and in Detroit's case, they want to save Grant for another deal or something like that, then you're probably looking at getting a third team involved with a more win now player like John Collins or OG Anunoby, or someone older, even like Gordon Hayward or Julius Randle if the Kings are crazy. Who knows? Like, so it's whoever, to me, I think they're going to trade it, and we'll see whoever can facilitate it so that the Kings get both win now players and assets, and that the third team can also get like Harrison Barnes and more assets. I think that's the team that's going to get the Ivy pick. And I'm kind of, maybe I'm in the like firmly going crazy part of the draft cycle, but I'm really confident the Knicks are going to get it done just because they have more things they can trade and more flexibility than the Pacers and the Pistons. They have little win now guys and bigger contracts and smaller contracts and picks this year and picks next year. And even if they have to throw Obi in, they could do that too if they really wanted to. I'm sure they don't, but like there's just a lot of ways they can get it done. What I'm worried about, and I'm curious if you're worried about this at all, is like I don't want this front office to end up like Danny Ainge on the Celtics, where he's just like, no, we're giving up too much, and I'm gonna let like one pick be the deal breaker, and I'm gonna err on the side of being conservative and never take the big swing and just settle for a bunch of Deuce McBrides and Quentin Grimes, which are good, but not take the home run swing. So that's kind of the fear, and I'm nervous that like we'll get someone good at 11 no matter what, but like if the Pacers or the Pistons get the fourth pick with some like super mid type package, I'm gonna be pissed, man. It'll be the first time I'm really pissed at the front office if that happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there's definitely something to be said about this being one of the bigger tests for the front office, and I feel like we have said that a couple times already. There's been a few like watershed moments, where you look at it and you say, "Hey, this is the test right here for the front office." And like last year's draft, like their first draft, fine, whatever. I thought they did great, but like even going into it, people were like, "We don't know what type of players this front office drafts yet." We know roughly what Walt Perrin likes, but we don't know for sure how like a Leon Rose led regime is going to go. So we have to kind of just go into it with an open mind. Obviously, I think now that's worked out pretty well. But like last year's draft, I think there was some of those expectations, and I was not terribly happy with the fact that they went as like relatively risk averse as they did by moving the pick that they did. Now they did ultimately sort of turn that what would have been 19th pick into Cam Reddish, which was not too bad. But also just, I mean, given what Reddish has shown to this point in his NBA career, I was like, it's a little underwhelming. Not that there was any, big time killers at pick 19 last year necessarily that, they could have taken and that would have worked out way, way better. But I don't know. I found myself still a little underwhelmed last year, but ultimately the results were there with like Quentin Grimes. Then once they got Reddish, and then obviously Deuce, I thought was really good as well. Sims, so they with what where they wound up drafting, they sort of crushed it last year as far as value goes. And then last free agency was another one of those where we are like, oh, this is gonna be the most important free agency in the last 20 years for the Knicks, and it was. And I don't think they made any of the wrong moves necessarily. I just think that they took a couple bad bets, or really the one bad bet was that Kemba Walker was still an NBA player, which he just really isn't anymore, unfortunately. So, and also then signing a guy in Fournier, who then Tibbs didn't have explicit instructions to play the way that he should be played, which then led to, of course, Fournier essentially being like Reggie Bullock for the first, I don't know, however many months of the season before he was finally allowed to start freelancing a little more and doing things that he does well. So that brings us to this draft, which again feels like another big moment here, right? This feels like they're going to have this opportunity to potentially trade up. And as you said, if some other team does it and the Knicks don't, and let's say it's like the Pacers or something, and they're, I think they have a decent amount of win now pieces as well, that are still left. They still have Brogdon, they still have Turner, guys like that. If they come in and they make some sort of offer and like severely beat out the Knicks, then fine. I guess I can live with that because I don't
If
want
we get beat by the Pacers, I'm gonna be pissed, and this is why. Because there's no way Turner is gonna go play with Sabonis again. Like
I guess
that's Sabonis doesn't want that. Turner doesn't want that. I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, so they really should look for a shot blocking, floor stretching center to play with Sabonis, but like not like they already did that. I'm sure neither of them wants to do that again. Turner is all about like, oh, I'm gonna get my touches this year, right? Because he got hurt, so he never got to even play with Halliburton. So there was a report where he was like, I'm looking forward to playing with him. I'm looking forward to getting more touches in the offense and all that. Not that the Pacers have to care about that, right? Like if they can get Ivy and Turner's the price, maybe they're like, so what? Like the Kings seem to be okay with it. We'll send you packing. I just think it's unlikely. And then like Brogdon, again, like they have Fox and Mitchell. So I really think they're looking at more wings or big wings that they're looking for. And I mean, the Pacers have like TJ Warren or whatever. They can send guys like Brogdon or I guess technically Turner um to other teams who have the wings. Like OG is just the first one who comes to mind. So say like, they send some stuff to Toronto sends OG. That's why I said it becomes a question of like, all right, which team, the Pacers or the Knicks, can send more stuff to that third team. But if we lose to the Pacers in a straight 2-team deal, that means they sent them like one pick and Chris Duarte and the corpse of Bubble God TJ Warren. And for some reason, we couldn't beat that. And I will be very sad. So if we lose in a 3-team deal, I'll be sad, but not as sad. If it's a 2-team deal and we lose out on that, then I'm just gonna have to like delete my Twitter for a while.
Yeah, maybe that. It might be a bunch of people too, because I think that a lot of people want to finally take that swing. And as you said, people are starting to get, not that fan opinion is worth jack as far as,
Right.
how the front office is going to be perceived, unless it's like mass outcry, which I think Dolan does actually kind of take note of a little bit. But, if a bunch of people get mad on Twitter that the Knicks didn't make a trade to get up for Ivy, I don't know if that's going to put Rose on the hot seat or something. But if Ivy comes into the league and starts tearing it up, and it's like, oh, the Knicks could have potentially beaten that Pacers package or whatever and didn't, and then Ivy turns into an amazing player, that's going to look really bad on them. And that might be one of the first dominoes we start seeing fall, as far as the front office being on like, on pins and needles a little bit. I guess we could sort of close this part of the discussion though with, if you were going to make an offer, and let's just assume that it's a 2-team offer, what's like your maximum, been at the negotiating table for like a day, everybody's at their wits end, you finally just say, you know what, this is it, final offer, this is as high as I'll possibly go. Where would you go as far as going up for Jaden Ivey?
So I think the big pieces I would offer, I don't know if they would want Obi, because I don't know if he's a good fit with Sabonis, but I would be like, hey, do you want Obi? That's where I would start. But really, like, in addition to our pick this year, I would give our 2023 pick top 2 or 3 protected. And then the Dallas 23 pick as well. So 3 firsts, whatever salary needs to happen if you need to do that. And pretty much just like pick whoever aside from RJ and IQ. That's like what I would say. Like, do you want Obi and Grimes and those picks? I don't know if I would do 3 picks and Obi. That seems a little crazy, but I would think really hard about it. If Obi's not in there, then I think you have to do 3 picks, because there's a big drop off after Obi and IQ, right? Like, unless they really like Cam Reddish, which, maybe they do, but Cam or Grimes, whatever. So something like that, a more pick based package, because we don't really have any impact wing, unless they want to Julius. I'm just assuming here that they don't want Julius Randle. If they did, that would be amazing and too good to be true. So I'm not even considering that. So something like that, 3 picks and role players, because they do need like guys like Burks or Fournier, who are shooters who can complement the guards and complement Sabonis. Like, that's what they need, right? Like, Grimes and Fournier and Burks are maybe a little smaller than they would like, but they can all shoot the heck out of the ball, which is really what they need around Fox and Sabonis. So, and they can create a little. So that's good.
Yeah, and the Knicks, in all likelihood, if they're sending out some salary, with if they send out a Burks or Fournier or whoever, probably would end up maybe getting back Harrison Barnes as a result,
Mm-hmm.
or someone like that, because they would have to do at
Bring
least
Mo home, Mo
yeah,
Harkless
or
again.
Mo Harkless again. Yeah, I mean he makes like $5 million. It's a nice little tradable chunk of money there.
All
So
right.
yeah, I go back and forth about how willing I'd be to give up the 2023 pick with anything less than like a top 10 protection on it. Just because of how deep next year's draft is projected to be. But
If they can do it and top 10 protected, that'd be like a amazing outcome. Because yeah, like you said, for people who don't know, so the 2023 draft, there's like two generational guys at the top, and then probably 5 or 6 or 7 guys who would be right in the like the Ivy kind of level um of just really talented, gifted, athletic or skilled or whatever. And I've gone back and forth on this as I've begun to learn about the 2023 class, but like where would I put Ivy in that class? And it's pretty much in the same range he's in now. It's just there's more people there. Like right now, he's kind of alone, right? Between, or maybe you could put AJ Griffin with him, but like there's the top three guys and then Ivy and then everyone else to a lot of people. And our big board, Ivy's right there in the mix. Um, so to me, I'm like, if you if Ivy if you had the fifth pick next year and you'd be considering Ivy anyway at 5, then just protect it right wherever that is, wherever you would consider him, like that's where you should try to protect it. And if, like you said, if they really push you, then you make it a little less protected than that. Um, you're a negotiator. Maybe I'm bad at that stuff, so I'd be like, whatever you need, just take the pick. But, I wouldn't be like top 10. That's my final offer, even if it's not.
yeah, as we always learn when we do the Strickland mock draft
Exactly.
exercise every year, I'm an animal in fake trades. I can only imagine what it would be like if I got put in a situation to do something actually of consequence.
That's
Definitely.
what we need. I need Alex energy from Brock Aller and Leon Rose, not Prez. I'm too cowardly for this.
Yeah, you just need to be. All you gotta do is be willing to say no. You just gotta be willing to say no and draw a hard line in the
I
sand.
can't. I can't do it. I love Ivy too much.
Take everything.
Unprotected, sure, take it.
Take everything. Take my house. Take my
Right.
kids. I don't care. If you're Leon Rose, take my stake left in CAA. It doesn't
I'll
matter.
name my firstborn child Vladi Divac. Whatever you need.
Exactly. Oh god, just that would be hilarious. All right, that's it for this first episode with Prez. I will be back on Wednesday to talk to him more. We're going to talk about the Strickland's final big board that dropped, where there was some players that are relatively high compared to consensus and relatively low compared to consensus, like AJ Griffin, Johnny Davis, Jalen Williams, who we haven't talked a ton about on this show yet. So lots of great discussions about some guys on that board, as well as some second round sleepers. We talk about some bigs that the Knicks could potentially look at. Talk about one of Prez's favorite players, Alondas Williams out of Wake Forest, and a bunch more. So there's a second great part to this episode. It's coming out Wednesday. Tomorrow, the second part of Gavin's discussion with Mark Schindler will be coming. And then Gavin and I will be reunited once again towards the end of the week for one more discussion with one of our favorite draft guests right before the draft. And then, of course, draft reactions out the wazoo to end the week. So we hope you guys stick with us for the rest of this week. Thank you for listening today, and we will talk to you all soon. Peace out, guys.